get a feeling when you know people are sort of don't think you're all there or something like that, and they don't like to say anything.
I had a doctor on an interview panel who looked at me and said, "Do you think you should be applying for this position because you have epilepsy?"
I've had one lady say, "Good gracious, you must have been seeing a psychiatrist all your life."
About 1 in every 200 people suffers from epilepsy. It can happen to anyone at any time. It's not a disease, it's not contagious, and in about 80% of cases, fits can be closely controlled. So why do people with epilepsy come up against so much prejudice from the public at large and from employers in particular?
People like to be able to take a black and white view of something, and I think that's where a lot of the problems occur, because you say epilepsy and somebody thinks, oh yes, somebody convulsing on the floor. I mean, that isn't a very accurate impression.
I was 18 years old at the time, and I had no idea before anything was wrong. And I was sitting, eating, and just felt a bit strange, and then that's the last thing I knew.
Virtually anyone can develop epilepsy. It tends to occur before the age of 20. About 75% of people developing epilepsy are under the age of 20, and quite often they're developing epilepsy around the time that they're starting to think about jobs and going for interviews. So it can be quite traumatic, I think, to develop it at that age.
In all the 8 years that I've been working, I'd never have had a fit at work, and no one really, hardly anyone knew about the fact I was, suffer from epilepsy. But it was, they made you think that you weren't of any use anymore. And that's the bit, you do a job to the best of your ability, and then to be told that suddenly, you can't do it anymore when you know that you can, that's the worst part.
I've been thrown out of jobs because of epilepsy. As soon as someone discovers, if they don't understand and they don't want to know about it, they throw you out and they find excuses for it.
Well, our experience is that some employers certainly do refuse to employ people with epilepsy. Trying to prove it is virtually impossible.
People with epilepsy encountering prejudice at work have no legal protection to help them fight discrimination. This has prompted the British Epilepsy Association to produce a Charter of Rights as part of a campaign to help employers' understanding.
The sort of action that we're taking within this area to try and break down prejudice with employers is to work with the employers. We try and educate them. That can be done either by going and giving talks, say to personnel departments, to help them understand all about epilepsy, so that when they see the box ticked off that says, have you ever had fits, faints or funny turns, they can actually understand what that means, rather than just automatically dismissing somebody.
If someone is already in a job and they develop epilepsy, the employer needs to consider whether or not that person can still do that job as they did before. Most times the answer will probably be yes. For example, in an office job, the epilepsy is unlikely to affect the person's capacity to do that job. We would much rather see employers trying to relocate people within their organisation. It may take only a very little change to that person's job description, and the employer still gains from that person's experience, and it also helps the person with epilepsy to come to terms with this new condition they've developed as well. So it helps everyone.
Society in many ways need to be educated, need to be told as to what it is and how to cope with it. I think if a lot of employers did really understand it and were told, it'd be a big stride forward.